Hey everybody, I hope you've all had a great past few weeks. It's been a while since I streamed. Keep on messing with my webcam. Yeah, I've spent the last hour or so trying to get my lighting and webcam set up how I'd like, so that's why I'm a bit late today, but sorry about that. But yeah, well, it's been a pretty strange couple of weeks. Well, first of all, I was off because I wanted to try and fix up my computer. Longtime viewers might know that my computer has had these strange crashes intermittently, so I decided to just go ahead and like completely reinstall Windows, and that has seemed to fix it so far. And then right after I did that, it was Thanksgiving, and then I went out of town for a little over a week, and then when I came back, I got laryngitis, so that's where I've been the last few weeks. But now everything's back to normal, and I'm going to try to stream pretty consistently every day in the morning. I'll probably take a couple days off for Christmas, but not too much because I've had so much downtime lately. Let's go ahead and get into Unity. So first, one fun thing I want to try and do with the stream is I'm going to have like a daily question. So yeah, feel free to try to answer or just give me your opinions on that, either in the stream or in Discord. Oh, hey Wonderful, thanks for hosting me. Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen you. I hope you had a great stream. I've been offline for a while, so... but anyway, so while I was gone, Unity has had a lot of changes. They updated to their 2018.3 version. And the biggest thing about that is they finally have the new prefab system. Yeah, I thought I hadn't seen you in a bit. Yeah, just a bunch of things happened to me over Thanksgiving. But I should be able to stream more consistently now, I hope. Okay, let's change it to isometric just because it's easier to navigate here. So one of the big things they changed in this new version is you can now edit prefabs in their own little, I guess, world here. So this is prefab edit mode. You can tell by this title up here that we're working on the player 1 prefab. And obviously if you change anything in here, it will automatically change any instances of this prefab. You can tell that if I move back into the scene view, that these objects are prefabs because these cubes are filled in blue, whereas these objects here are all just normal objects, or I guess not a prefab. This one, this player 2, I don't know if you can see it on stream. I've always wished I could increase the resolution of Unity to make, or the zoom of Unity to make it a little easier to see, but this little cube has, I guess, 2 little arrows that mean that this is a prefab variant. So basically this is, well, it's pretty much just another separate prefab that just has a few changes from the player 1 prefab. Specifically, I changed the material to this red color. Suppose it makes it easier to separate prefab properties from instance properties. Yes, that's exactly what this is doing here. So now, yeah, I'm just going to remake this whole player 2 prefab, so hopefully that will illustrate this. So let's get rid of this. And okay, so now it's saying that this has been disconnected, but that's fine. So if I go ahead and duplicate this player 1, so now this is just an instance of the player 1 prefab. I'm going to go ahead and rename it. And I'm going to give it the player 2 material. And you can see these are highlighted in blue, which means that this is an overwritten property. It's just kind of like how Unity used to handle prefabs. So this instance just has a different value than the actual player 1 prefab. Oh, I should actually change the position so you can actually see what I'm doing here. Another thing I want to overwrite is this tag. I want to change that to player 2 so the system can grab the right object. Okay, and again, any changes, like again, I don't know if you can actually see this on stream, but it's highlighted in blue right here and also bold. That means it's an overwritten property. And you can also see any overwritten properties by clicking on this overrides tab, which I thought this was pretty interesting. So here it says that the game object hook has this registration tag changed from the prefab source. So I've changed it from player 1 to player 2. And then on the capsule object, the mesh renderer has a different material. So that's really interesting. And you can also revert this one property, or you can apply it, which will apply this override to the prefab as a whole. No, I don't really want to do either of these, but yeah, just for illustration. So I reverted this to blue. And then if I can just go back and change it again. And likewise, if I change, or if I apply this, so now the player 1 prefab has the blue material, and I'll just want to go and change it back to the blue material. So now I'm editing the prefab itself. And if I go to capsule, and again, just select the player 1 material. And now if I go back into the scene, you can see that both the prefabs now have the blue material because I changed the prefab. So I hope that makes sense. I'm kind of going through this fast because I'm starting really late. But yeah, the new prefab system is really interesting. Now here, since I have these overrides, it's kind of easier to work. Well, okay, how should I put this? I guess overrides are nice, but they can pretty easily be lost if you accidentally revert. Like if you click this, all your changes would be lost. And also, if you, for instance, if I had 2 player 2s, but for some reason I wanted to change the material to some third color, I'd have to go through each instance of this player 2 and change the material on that, because the player 2 is not actually a prefab itself. It's just an instance of the player 1 prefab with some fields overwritten. So one thing you can do to fix that problem is if I drag this player 2 down here into the assets, it will ask me if I want to create a new original prefab or a prefab variant. And an original prefab would be just another prefab, but it loses its connection to the player 1 prefab. So if I ever wanted to add anything to all player objects, it would be a pain because I'd have to do it to both the player 1 and player 2. So that's where the new prefab variants come into play. If I create that, the player 2 is a prefab variant of player 1, meaning that it's basically the player 1 prefab with those overwritten values built in. So like here in the instance, there's nothing overwritten. But if I go back and edit the player 2 variant prefab in prefab editing mode, you can see that it's stored those 2 overrides in here. So now I can't accidentally revert them in the scene view. And if I ever wanted to, like if I had 2 player 2s now, and I wanted to change some value for both of these, I could just go into the player 2 variant. I guess let's just change this. So this tag, I'll just change it to, I don't know, we'll spell out player 2 if for some reason we had to do that. And now if we go back into the scene, we can see that it's spelled out for both of these objects. But obviously the player 1 is still the same. So I'm going to be making heavy use of this new system, I think, in this game. Because it's just, it basically fixes a lot of the problems with Unity's old prefab system. Because it allows you to have these variants without... well, like, I actually had this problem where I had several prefabs that I wanted to have some code in common, but some code separate. And that was pretty much impossible to do before because you'd have to just rely on the overrides, which I'm trying to put my thoughts together, but so yeah. But yeah, I really like the new system. But yeah, I went through that pretty quickly, so I hope that that kind of made sense. But as I said, I'm planning to use this system quite a bit in this new game. So I think just as I work through it, it should become more apparent some of the use cases for it. This really just allows you to share code and values between objects more easily without having to worry about updating one value and it not being shared between all instances. Okay. Yeah, maybe this week I'll put together a better illustration of this, because it's kind of hard to explain without a good example. And there's only so much you can do with changing colors on this material. But yeah, I'll look into that. I don't know if anybody remembers, but I think it was like almost a year ago, I used to do tutorials every Friday. And that was kind of fun, but it was a little bit too much preparation. But I'd like to bring it back, so maybe I could just do one every month or something, I don't know. But I think the new prefab system, it would be a great example of one, of a topic to cover. Okay, so the other big change in this new version of Unity, which it doesn't show it here, but basically the entire networking system has been deprecated, which for non-programmers, that means that Unity has decided that they're no longer going to support it, and so they are warning you to change your code to not rely on it, because it will probably be removed sometime in the future. And in our case, we actually know when it's going to be removed. I'm trying to find a class that uses it because it should give me a warning. Oh yeah, so this network writer, it says, network writer is obsolete. The high-level API classes are deprecated and will be removed in the future. So anything that uses network writer, or basically any of Unity's new networking or Unity's current networking system, needs to be changed. And we know that in the 2019.1 version, all of these networking classes are going to just be completely removed. So at least right now, you can still run the game with these deprecated classes, but in 2019, you won't be able to. Replacer Unity doesn't think they can provide a sufficiently generic networking system. Well, I think it's kind of both, because they're pretty much only going to have the low level API, which is, let me see. Forgive me, I forget what code or what class I put all this in. Message receiver. Yeah, so right here, this network transport right now is their low level API, which is basically just a pretty small layer over, I don't know, generic sockets in C# or whatever. I think it's actually C++ in Unity's case, but that's the reason why they're removing the high level API, because they didn't think it was generic for enough games types, which I kind of agree, because it really wasn't good for anything except prototyping, in my opinion, because it just wasn't, I guess, well made enough or not customizable enough. Like, I never used it in my turn-based strategy game. I saw some people use it for like platformers, but I think that I don't know, it was just you need to have more control over the movement of characters, I think. Sounds like a crazy hard challenge. Yeah, so basically that was one reason why they're deprecating the high level API. Also because they want it to be more, or hook more into their new entity component system, which apparently they could not get the high level API to work with, probably for similar reasons. But I guess the low level API is also kind of caught as collateral damage, because they're going to also remove this network transport class. And although they've said that the new system is going to have a similar API, it's actually not available to look at right now, which kind of puts me in a hard spot, because I have to continue developing with this network transport and just kind of take them in their word that I'll be able to easily port to the new system. That's what they've said is going to happen, but like I don't know what the new system is yet, which is kind of annoying. You'd think that if they're going to deprecate this, they'd have the new system at least available to look at, but as far as I know, it's not. Which I did check at the end of last week. But so basically what I'm going to do, the Tactical Lizard Tamer game, which is the game that I've been doing on stream for quite a while for any new viewers. It's like a kind of like Pokemon, a turn-based strategy game. I'm going to pretty much have to rewrite all of the code in that, because it actually did use some high-level API for serialization. So I'm going to kind of put that on hold for now because I want to get a handle on the low-level API with this game, and hopefully I'll be able to port it easily. Think about the rough structure, sending and receiving messages, and make your own interface around that. Yeah, so that's kind of what I'm going to try to do, Wondable, exactly. So one other thing, let me see. Trying to remember where I set this up. Network. Sorry, like I haven't looked at this for quite a while because I've been out of town, of course. But they also have said that they're not going to have reliable messages when the new system first comes online, which is, oh, here in Network Setup Manager. I think I went right over it. So right here I set up 2 channels, a reliable sequence channel, which means that any message you send over here is guaranteed to be received, and also in the order that you send them. And both of these properties are not going to be supported in the new system at launch. So I'm wondering how I want to handle that. I guess it's not really a problem at this point because I don't think I actually use the reliable channel yet. But it is nice when I send like events or something over the network. I can kind of handle it myself by just sending everything on unreliable and then waiting until I receive a receipt message from the other client, which is probably what I'm going to have to do. So I'm wondering if I should just remove this channel right now. I'm pretty sure I don't use it yet. Oh yeah, I had this. Do I use this reliable sequenced? No. This is the only time it's appears in the code. Okay, well that's good to see, I guess. Yeah, speaking of crazy hard problems, it's a shame that I've decided to try and do all this networking stuff when Unity is in flux right now. But I kind of wanted to do a multiplayer game. So, and unfortunately with multiplayer, you have to build the game from the ground up with multiplayer in mind because it's not something you can just add in. So I think we'll just kind of continue with this and try to work around this network transport. And I guess, like I said, hope that the new system is easily portable. And I think I'll just assume that I can't have reliable and sequence messages, which I don't think will be too much of an issue with this game. It would be a big issue, again, with Tactical Lizard Tamer, which is another reason why I'm waiting to work on that again. Because that game is turn-based and it assumes that things happen in a certain order. But this game is more real-time, so hopefully it'll be okay. Okay, so I'm just going to remove this. And sometime in the future, if I ever need to have a sequenced message, I'll just create my own system to support that. What else do I need to do? Okay, first, I think I have too much open at the top. Okay, and again, we don't have this channel anymore. Oops. Okay, so now this switch statement is a little unneeded. Well, not a little unneeded, it's completely unneeded, but I'll just leave it for now. Because probably what I'll do is if I want to have a reliable sequenced message, I'll probably want to support it here somewhere. So I guess this will still be okay. All right. So before I go any further, I should probably test the game to see if what I've done so far still works. Okay, there's something wrong. Variable players has not been assigned. Oh, probably because I deleted this object when I was showing off the new prefab system. Okay, so now nothing's happening right now because I need to set up the server and client. So I need to build a second instance of this game. Let's see. I think this is already set up. Oh, one thing I need to do. Here's I think I said this before, but if you're that's not what I wanted. Oh yeah, build settings. No, that's not what I want either. I want the player settings. Where is that? They also changed. Oh yeah. So now all the project settings are in this one window, which is kind of nice. So what I want to do is in other settings, make sure that this is set to mono instead of the IL2 CPP, because the mono builds much faster, like a fraction of the time that it takes IL2 CPP. So when you're doing these testing game builds, you'll definitely want to have that selected, and then when you get to the final game or close to the final game, you want to start testing with IL2 CPP, because you can have some bugs in that don't appear in mono, but yeah, it just takes forever to build. Let's see. Looked. Okay, so this should just take a minute or so, as opposed to like 10 minutes. Oh yeah, so here it's giving me all the warnings about the network deprecation. It's saying network writer is obsolete, network transport's obsolete. Yeah, it's annoying that they don't. I can't believe, honestly, that they haven't released, or at least like have a preview for the new network system, because it's really put me in a bind. Okay, so we got that open, and okay, I think this is the right one. I don't need it that big. Oh, I don't really want it full screen either. Oop, that didn't mess up my capture. Okay, it looked like that was fine. Oh, the white balance is really off. I need to mess with my webcam more. I spent like an hour before stream trying to get my lighting set up, just because I was unhappy with it before. I know I always used to complain about my webcam software, but as you can see, I still need to do a bit more on it. Okay, so now we've connected, and you can see the round trip times are updating. Yeah, and here's a good illustration that they can be different for each client. Okay, but anyway, so I'm gonna move around here and I'll show up. Okay, so we were in the middle of making a good movement system here. So this red player is actually being controlled by this client, and then it's sending messages to the editor instance of the game. And it's trying to just interpolate the movement because it only receives a new event every second or so. That's why it is jumpy, but it's kind of on its way. And I guess we'll test the editor. So if I move the blue player, it should show up in the correct position on the small client. But since this is full screen, we can't see it. Okay, so yeah, it's okay. Well, it's good to see at least that there's no problems so far. All right. So where's the code that sends new positions? Player position sender, is this it? Okay, so it just sends a message every second. Now we could do something. This obviously is not what you'd want to do because you're sending. Actually, they may actually update this often, I don't know. But we can see that if we just increase the send period, that will start to get smoother movement, but that's a lot of bandwidth that's probably not needed. So let's just let this play and remember to unclick. What? Oh, I did it backwards. Okay. Okay, so Alt Enter. There we go. I was thinking that was full screen, but anyway. So now with the new, oh yeah, I got to start the server, obviously. And start client. And give it a second to update the ping times. So I don't know, I'll have to look at that. Okay, so now, oh yeah, we can't actually see it move, so I need to start here. Okay, well there is a little jerkiness there, so even sending a message every 10th of a second still isn't perfect. And it's because right now the game doesn't take into account changes in acceleration because of the input. So you can see when we stop or change direction, it kind of just keeps sending it full speed forward the way it used to be, and then it bounces back when it gets another message. Yeah, I hope you guys can see that on stream. I don't know if it's too small. But yeah, it's really, it bounces back and forth a lot when I try to switch directions like this. So obviously that's not what we want. So I mean, we could keep on decreasing the send period, but then we just keep on using more and more bandwidth, and it's just not a good idea. So let's see. Basically, instead of sending the position, we want to actually send a message whenever the input changes. And that way, well, this might not be the final implementation, but this is what we're going to try next. We'll send a message whenever the input changes. And that way the other client can simulate the change in acceleration and everything. So let me see. So this actually, yeah, so all it does is just waits until the timer is greater than the send period and then sends a message. So we'll actually want to check whenever this input move changes. And then send a message now. We could also send a message every few seconds, but just to kind of make sure that the positions are synchronized. But I think for now I'd like to try it just purely on this input change and see how that looks. Okay. So I guess we'll start from the controlling client, which will be the one that has the local input. And it will send a message over to the other client, and then when the client receives that message, it will basically just work the same as the local player and then accelerate the player's object to correspond with a new input. Okay, I hope that made sense. Also, while I was gone, I changed up all of my audio settings, so let me know if the balance is off there. I think I got a better quality because Well, it's hard for me to get a good balance between noise reduction and not sounding like I'm a robot. But I think I might have done pretty well this time. Anyway, so I'm trying to decide, do I want to just, well, okay, this is, let's go into Git and save this as a tag. So that way if I need to move back to this timer, I can revert easily. I'm not sure if I have any personal information, so I'll just drag that off screen. So all I'm going to do is just commit to get the changes I've done so far. Yeah, there's nothing on here that, well, maybe my password, I'm not sure. So yeah, just please bear with me for a second. Okay, so let's just say this change is sending position updates periodically. And we'll just commit this. And then I want to save a tag, which is basically just some position in, or it saves the current state of your project with some name that you can get back to at any point. We'll name this, well, I mean, what comes to mind is like naive networking, but that's probably not a good name for it. Let's just say periodic position events, or messages, probably better. Oh yeah, based on the head. And there we go. So thank you for putting up with that screen. I haven't really worked with Git on stream, so I needed to make sure that nothing sensitive appeared on there. But yeah, I could have done it on screen, I think. So anyway, now that's all set up, so I can go ahead and delete all this code without any worry. So we won't need a timer or a send period. I think we can keep this send message because it already sends the information that we're going to need to. The current position and then the current input. And again, this is just warning that this network writer is deprecated and will be obsolete, or actually removed, in the pretty near future. I think 2019.1 will probably come out in March. Usually it does. They usually come out around March, August, and December, but we'll see. Okay, so what we need to do now, I guess, whenever this input move is different, we'll want to send this message. So we could either rely on some other class that would send us an event to send this message, or we can watch this input ourselves. I'm trying to decide what would be better. Probably to have some other class might be a little smarter, because then I can edit how this event is sent without having to change this class itself. Let me see. But I don't know, maybe I'm going to get too complicated for this test project. Oh, also one other bad thing is we wouldn't want to send this event every frame anyway, because that's bad for bandwidth. Oh, well, actually it could happen. Okay, let's see. I guess input, let's say move input change watcher. Okay, what was the namespace for this? Okay, just network test. And again, this will be a flow logic container, which is just a class that I use for my event system, and it just lets me hook into it a little easier. And so what I'll need here is the positions. Well, actually, no, I just need the input state, don't I? Maybe the actual game state to make sure that we only send these events during the movement phase and not, for instance, when we're trying to set up the server. Okay, and now this error is letting me know that I need to send a value up to the parent class. In this case, it's the event queue. Okay, so we're going to override the tick function, and this function is really just called every frame. I guess, let's see. Okay, so it's a vector 2, which is fine, but it actually can only take a few values. There's any combination where x and y is 0 and 1 or -1, so I think technically that's 9 values. I'm trying to decide. Well, actually, if we ever used a controller, then these are actual real numbers, so that's infinite. Well, I still want to have. Okay, well, that's actually a problem for another day. Let's just do something simple. So vector 2 last move value. Oh yeah, I need to get the Unity engine. Well, that's another thing that's changing. I wonder, is it already in here? So private float 2. Okay, it's not. Oh, actually, I probably just have to get the package, but Unity is also rebuilding pretty much all their math classes to be more like the shader language, which uses float2 instead of vector2. I'm actually kind of excited about that because they have something called a swizzle operator, which is kind of nice to work with. Basically, you can, let's see. Let's just write a little test code. So if we had float3 position, which is just an XYZ position, and pretty often in Unity you only want to use the X and Z positions of a 3D place because you want to get like a 2D value for that on the XZ plane. So right now you'd have to do something like, I don't know. Well, let's write it both ways. So vector 3, we have the position 3D, which we got somewhere, and the vector 2, position 2D. We'd have to do something like position 3D.x, position 3D.y, or z. Why is it complaining about that, actually? Oh, because it's saying it's undefined. I guess just to get rid of that error, I'll just do that. But now with the new swizzle operator, you can just do something like float2, position 2D equals position 3D dot xz. And so that's basically all it does. It's not really anything special, but it just makes this a lot cleaner, in my opinion. You can also do funny things like if you want it backwards, you can do zx and it will give you those values in that order. You can do something like xxx if you want to only get the x value 3 times, and pretty much any combination. But yeah, sorry for that tangent. It just reminded me when I was thinking about the vector 2. So what I want to do here is check if the value and input has changed relative to the value last frame. So probably what I'll do, let's get vector2m equals input move, and then we'll use this approximately function, which checks if two floating point values are close together in value, if I can actually get the function. Yeah, you pretty much never want to do something like if m.x equals last move value.x, because the floating point values have rounding errors. So you shouldn't ever like assume that they'll be completely equal. So this math f approximately actually checks to see if they're just very close to one another, which is usually good enough. And then, so if, okay, so this is making sure that they are almost equal. So I actually want to get the opposite of this. I could do if x is approximately the same and y is approximately the same as false. So this means either one is not approximately the same. You could also just, I know people always point out that you could just put this not symbol in front, but I feel like that's easy to get lost. And if you put is equal to false, it's just easier to read. Okay, so if that's true, then we'd want to send some event to send the new value to on the network. Okay, so when does this player position sender run? Look here. Okay, so we have the player position sender runs here, which is after normal. Okay, so that's what I'd want to happen. So I'm going to make sure that this move input change watcher is on the normal ticking priority so that I can just push an event on the queue immediately and not have to worry about it getting lost. Let's see, so tick. And that's just because the input queue is cleared at the end of every frame. So if you add something or queue it immediately, then only classes that run after this would actually see that event. But that's fine in our case. Okay, so what is a new event? I guess class, let's not put it here actually. So send player position message command, and this will be an event. And then this class, oh, I should have checked that I was in the right phase actually. Also, I need to set last move value to m right here. Okay, so if state phase is in the movement phase, then we'll actually check this, otherwise we don't have to worry about it. Okay, so now I want to go back here. We don't really need to check this anymore. All I have to do, yeah, I don't even need this tick at all. We'll just add a listener. Event exists listener for send player position command. And then we'll just need to pass the events and then send message. So whenever this event is seen on the event queue, then this function will be called when our update function is, or when our tick function is called. So, okay, so that should just work, I think. Let me just Okay, we'll actually need to leave pretty soon here, but let's go ahead and try to test this out. Hopefully there won't be too many errors. I'm curious to see if this actually looks much better. Okay, so we'll place that down here. Start up the server. And the client. So far, so good. I'll give it a second to do some pings. Okay. And now... Oh, well, one thing I did not do is it doesn't actually simulate acceleration, I don't think. Well, maybe it does. Because I actually completely forgot to do that part of it. But there's still some moving back and forth because it might not get immediately when you change your input. And I think sometimes the acceleration doesn't match completely, but some parts are a little smoother. So I think we're on the right track. There are a couple other things I need to do. Let me see. They're actually pretty close. I don't know if we can illustrate it here, but because of latency, sometimes I might need to make a scene here that's easier to measure, but sometimes since it takes roughly this long for a message to be actually it takes half that, so this long for a message to be received by the client, the player will actually be that far behind. Now, since these players move relatively slowly, I don't think it actually makes much difference at this point. But what you want to do to try to correct that is on this client, since this is the one that's receiving the messages, you actually want to have it accelerate slightly faster to reach top speed. That way, hopefully the positions will be a little closer. And also, you see here, it jerks back and forth because it's correcting the position every time a new event is received. And usually you don't want to do that because the idea is that you'll end up in the right position eventually, and the only reason that they're different is because of this round trip time. So you only want to do a rubber band like that if the positions get wildly different, which can happen just because a message is lost, for example. So those are a couple things we're going to work on soon. Probably tomorrow. But yeah, I think I'm gonna have to call the stream for now. So again, sorry it was a bit of a short one, almost an hour, so not too bad. But yeah, I had to mess with my lighting for ever before stream. Yeah, I hope you all had a great Thanksgiving if you're American, or just a great couple weeks if you weren't. And I'll be back tomorrow and we'll continue on this networking journey. I'm trying to make do with the deprecated system as best we can. But yeah, I guess it's been a while. I'll go ahead and do my full outro. So I do have, of course, feel free to follow me here when you'll be notified when I go live tomorrow at around noon Eastern. I think that's still correct. Also, I have a Twitter where I always post when I go live, and also some other ramblings about game development, so feel free to follow me there if that's interests you. Pretty much ditto with my Instagram, except I usually post more development screenshots. And then this video will go live on my YouTube channel tomorrow night. So if you missed any part of the stream or just want to see how the games used to look, you can check it out there. And oh, and of course I have a Discord. So if you'd like to chat with me throughout the day, feel free to join us. I'm going to go ahead and post the daily question there. Although since this stream was shorter, I might also make that the question for tomorrow. So if you'd like to weigh in on that, again, it's oh, how did I word it? Oh yeah, how will you use Unity's new prefab system? So good. I thought that might be a fun thing to do, just to discuss on stream, because sometimes I know just programming can get a little dry. But yeah, I'll put links in chat, or you can check out the video description if you're watching from YouTube. And I'll see you tomorrow. Hope you all have a great day. Bye-bye.